Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Al, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, thanks.
Good, man. I'm glad to hear it.
Awesome.
Are you going to do video, Al, or we just want audio, or what's best?
Let me see if. Oh,
Are you on a phone or are you on a computer?
there we go.
Oh, there he
I
is.
thought it was. I thought it was. Thought it was working.
Oh my God, I was debating about wearing that exact shirt, Al. I swear to God, something
Thank
told
God
me
you
like,
didn't.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my,
We
yeah.
would have had to turn the light on in the bedroom before we got dressed.
Okay.
That is so crazy. Wow.
Let's do this.
Funny.
All righty.
In 1963, Lou Says became the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He did a lot of that. Winning, I mean. The same year, my first guest, Al Snow, was born. Al is an American professional wrestler, actor, professional wrestling trainer, and promoter. He's best known for his in-ring work in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and World Wrestling Entertainment. Snow has held various backstage positions for professional wrestling promotions. He's worked as a road agent for Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, later Impact Wrestling, from 2010 to 2017, and has owned Ohio Valley Wrestling since 2018. If you haven't read his book, Self-Help, Life Lessons from the Bizarre Wrestling Career of Al Snow, I urge you to grab a copy. My second guest is Aaron Stevens, aka Damien Sandow. He was born in 1982, the year Ric Flair defeated Kerry Von Erich to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. From 2003 to 2006, Sandow wrestled in WWE's developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling, under the tutelage of Al Snow. He currently wrestles for National Wrestling Alliance and was the first ever Impact Grand Champion in 2016. There's my intro. It's like the toughest part of the show to get through that part. But to start it all out, I'd be interested to know like how you guys began your career. So Aaron, I read up a bit. You were 16 years old and you started going into wrestling. You're a big fella. How come not football or any other sports? Why were you so focused on wrestling?
Honestly, I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was at a department store with my mother, and they had those old school arcade games, you know, like the big ones. And I just distinctly remember this. I was told if I behaved myself, I could go play one. So my mother gave me a quarter. I put it in, and it just happened to be a pro wrestling game. I didn't know what I was doing. I lost. And it was there that my infatuation, shall we say, with professional wrestling happened. And I just was like, that's it, I'm going to be a wrestler. And it just never kind of went away. And from there, I kind of weaseled my way into Killers at about 16. And that was it. Yeah.
I had the WWF stand-up arcade in my house.
Nice.
It was so much fun. It was really good. All right, Al, how about you, man?
Well, I made the decision when I was 14 years old that I was going to be a professional wrestler. And there was never a plan B. That was the only plan. Before the age of the internet, I would walk to the local public library and I would, they had telephone books, white pages for all of the major cities in the United States. And I used to get the old After magazines. And they would list in there where the office was for particular territories. So like the Mid-Atlantic was the Crockett's office, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'd go down there and get the phone book and pull up Jim Crockett Promotions, the office. And then what I did was I would, once a month, I would call all of the different offices. You know, it got to the point that they recognized my voice. Sometimes they'd hang up on me. Sometimes if they were bored, they'd try to rib me. You know, they'd try to talk me out of it. And finally, when I was in high school, the last year of high school, they ran a wrestling show as a fundraiser. And they used Dick the Bruiser, Dick Afflis, he out of Indianapolis, ran the show for them. And the guy that worked on the show, a guy by the name of Jim Lancaster, was starting his own promotion. And I contacted him and he turned me down and wouldn't refuse to train me. And then I I got a hold of Jim Crockett Promotions again and spoke to Gene Anderson. They were having a tryout like in October of that year. Took a 24-hour bus ride to Charlotte, which was probably one of the most inhumane things to ever do to anybody. And walked about 5 miles from the bus station in downtown Charlotte out to the arena, the old Charlotte Coliseum. Got in there, and the next day on Sunday, I went in and basically got brutally exhausted and blown up, and then got the literal crap beat out of me and broke my nose. And they sent me home. Cost me $250.
Oh, we lost you. If you can hear me,
I can hear you. I'm so for whatever reason my internet is kind of spotty today. I don't know why.
Okay, all right, so you were you went down there, and then they broke your nose.
Yeah, they beat the crap out of me. Ole Anderson beat the crap out of me and broke my nose. And then I came back, spoke to Jim Lancaster, who was starting promoting shows, and he wanted his own crew of guys, and I convinced him to train me, and then the rest is history. May 22nd of 1982 was my very first match.
Wow. So were your parents always really supportive of you going for this, or?
Aaron's or mine?
Well, Aron was born the year you started your career, but so I was your parents, Al. I mean, you're a kid. You come back with a busted up nose, but you've been wanting to do it for years.
Yeah.
So I assume you weren't turned away at all. But
my mother and my father and mother supported it. Supported me. My mother's support, though, she would always show up at shows, but she was never too thrilled until I really, I became more of a national attraction, I guess you could say, because I started, showing up more on TV where people would notice me and see me. But before that, I think I remember one of her statements was, "Are you trying to kill me?" And I was like, "No, if I were going to do that, I'd just push you down the stairs." So.
Love it. No cuts. Just that's what I would do, Mom. Not that I've thought about it, Mom, but
yeah.
Did you do other sports when you were a kid? Were you in good shape when you went out there, or did you think?
Well, I thought I was before I went. I trained in martial arts, karate and jiu-jitsu, and a little bit of kung fu, and a little bit of Muay Thai and a bit of actual boxing, but nothing could prepare you for, you've got to be in wrestling ring shape. You've got to just get in the ring and wrestle. That's it. That's the only. I think Aaron will agree. You can't. There's nothing you can do that'll get you in there.
Yeah, it's so weird because like you're having to breathe. You're having to. You're picking people up, and I mean, other people's lives are in your hands, so you kind of can't mess up. And then considering all that, you also have to think when you're in there. And sometimes, when you think, when you think, you forget to breathe. And if you forget to breathe, then everything just goes. I think you taught me that, Al.
Yeah, you gotta breathe.
Yes. Yeah, but it is. It's like the only training for wrestling is to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your first time in the ring like? You got your ass kicked too, or did you do all right?
No, it was weird because Killer was very good to me. I was the only 16-year-old there. So he kind of like took me under his wing, but then so my first time in the ring was pleasant. But then once I was a regular, not so much, and you got roughed up. It wasn't anything like Al, but they would rough you up a little bit, and you just kind of you learn, you take it, and you go there. And with Ole Anderson, that was definitely a different experience. So Ole was known for that.
What, for roughing you up?
Yeah, yeah, he was. Yeah.
Well, Ole was a sadistic guy. He was a very sadistic bastard.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to say it, Al. That's all. I just because I never actually met him, so.
He had a brilliant mind for the wrestling business, that's for sure, and brilliant booker, and in a time frame that where you didn't buy a house, in a territory, like Ole was able to buy a house in Charlotte and, live there for, years, and was a on the top of the card attraction, can maintain his heat as a heel for a very long time. So that's a rare situation back in those days. Cool. He was booking two territories. He was booking Gunkel's territory in Atlanta. I think Gunkel wasn't his territory at that time. I forget who took over. I think Jack and Jerry Briscoe and somebody else owned the territory when Ole was booking that territory when it was on WTBS, and it had its huge national run, and because it was the first national territory of national exposure was TBS for Georgia Championship Wrestling. And then he was also booking in Charlotte at the same time, running that office as well. So, Ole was a very talented person, but he just was such a mean, grumpy, sadistic bastard. So,
yeah. So, going through some of your guys' history here, I'm reading through the storylines and whatnot, and I think you're both pretty fucked up.
I think that's a fair assessment.
They're pretty brutal. I've got some questions. So, what happened to Pepper, Al?
Pepper was near my heart until I had a bowel movement. So,
I'm reading. So, and then I watched the video. There was a lot of meat on the plate. The dog was really small.
The dog was small, but you could stretch that dog for a mile. I mean, you could take it. You'd be surprised. It's like, everybody eats chicken. And if you eat one cat, everybody freaks out. And it's one of the cleanest animals on the planet. I mean,
So are you cleaning up your neighborhood one animal at a time, or what? All right. So Pepper's gone. All right, there's one question down.
If you eat one cat.
Hold on.
There I am.
What'd you say?
I said that everybody, eats chicken, and it's one of the dirtiest animals on the planet. You eat one cat, everybody freaks out.
Because chicken tastes good. It's a good.
Do you ever wonder why cats lick themselves? It's because they're delicious. Okay.
Are you licking any cats, Aaron? I don't have any cats. I don't.
No, yeah, no. I haven't recently. No.
All right.
Don't know what you're missing. You know what?
Yeah. In that vein,
turn the grill down.
What storylines have been off limits in your career? Have there been any times where they've said to you, "Don't go down this road. We don't want to," or anything like that?
Yeah, I had with the head, I had multiple heads I was going to use to represent different personality aspects. They're going to help me, hate me, love me, different, to just add depth to the character. And Vince ixnayed that. And then there was a storyline idea where I was, we kind of started it where I'd be with Bob and Crash Holly and in a 6-man tag, and I would turn on them. I would be with the Hardy Boys, and in the match, I'd turn on them. And then at some point, they were all going to come back, and they were all going to attack me and beat the shit out of me. And I'd be off TV for a couple weeks, and then I'd come back out on TV, standing on the stage with Bob and Crash in the ring, and I'd just point, and an air raid siren would go off, and from underneath the ring, 20 midgets all dressed alike would attack Bob and Crash. It would be called the Swarm. And Vince kind of put an ixnay on that one. He didn't want to do the 20 midget thing. So
19 midgets?
Well, payroll. Right.
Payroll, yeah.
Less midgets, less money.
Listen, you can always short them on their pay. So.
What's the most expensive storyline you remember? Because watching you eat the dog in the hotel room wasn't exactly the most expensive spot.
I don't know if there was really one storyline that really cost an enormous amount of money, per se. Some were more fun than others, but the
head one, reading up on it, that's all you. You came up with the whole idea behind all of it?
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really brilliant from going through them. It's really smart.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. I thought it was really good. And then, just reading up on this, I'm never been a huge wrestling guy, so it was interesting. And then, Aron, now, so to ask you, you did this whole impersonation thing. Where did you come up with the ideas every what is it, week?
I didn't. Pretty much what happened was, character-wise, I was in a spot to where I had the Money in the Bank briefcase and ended up losing the briefcase, which was like a world title opportunity. And, I had given them about like 3 or 4 different ideas, and they said, okay, great. And then I got to TV, and then, okay, you're dressing up as someone new every week. And, they had done that with people in the past, and it really never kind of worked out. So with me, it was just like, okay, I'm Daniel Boone. I think that was one of them, right? Or Davy Crockett or something. So like I said, look, this is live TV. I'm not going to half-ass any of this. So like I went on my phone, researched like the old Fez Parker type stuff, and then I just did it. There was another time when...
Did you go up to the winery to do some research?
Oh, yes.
Good.
I've heard of it. Yes, I heard. There was another one when I was an interpretive dancer, and they're like, okay, so you're just going to wear like this guy's pants and do that. And I was like, no. I go, you are to get me a onesie leotard. It is to be flesh colored. Sure enough, they send someone out. They come back with the onesie flesh colored leotard. So lo and behold, now we're on Raw. Here I come. And I had a ribbon on a string and everything. Well, my grandmother would watch she'd go over to my parents' house and watch every Monday. And when I came out, she just started screaming, oh my God, he's bare ass, apparently. That was the big thing. And so yeah, that was not grandma's favorite one.
But the question is, your family proud of you guys? And I guess you just answered it. Poor grandma.
No, they were like, they would go to every show. I mean, if we were in a 100-mile radius, I'd have like 20 or 30 of them there. I mean, it was, yeah.
Cool.
And they would embarrass me.
Well, that's good. What about you, Al? Is the family over? Do your kids still think you're cool? Or
Yeah, I mean, at first, when my career first started, everybody thought it was a bit of a joke, and family members. But then once you get on national TV, that changed everything. Then everybody comes out of the closet, and I've always supported you, and I've always there for you. It's like, yeah, okay,
yep.
Well,
Buddy's made funny with a broken nose as a kid, where you went out for tryouts and.
Yeah.
So who do you think did Bruce Springsteen better here, Al? Was it our friend Aron, or was it Adam Sandler?
That's okay. I mean, you just...
To give Aron credit, I watched him sing some of it in there, and I thought you did a pretty decent job. You know what?
No, that was a one-off, and I've I definitely say Adam will win that one.
So what's it like? So for me, I worked in the music industry for a few minutes, and so we have big audiences sometimes. I said with Rock and Reels, 270,000 people. With you guys at WrestleMania and these big events, they are big events. There's a lot of people there. So
oh yeah.
You're walking out. You're not with a band. You guys have awesome intros. I love the big video board and stuff. But what's the feeling like as you're walking towards the stage? What do you do if you do break your nose? How often does the storyline change? I'm figuring there's a lot of that. Not the breaking part, but the storyline quickly changing. And then how much of it is just stuff? Is everything choreographed completely, or?
I can't speak for now. I can tell you that, in the past, I mean, it was just a real large part of it was your ability to improv and just think on your feet and pay attention to the audience and live in the moment. And, for me, I know a lot of people, Mick Foley and I argue about this, walking out in front of 100,000 people is amazing, but it's just as amazing to walk out in front of 100 for me.
Yeah.
Because, getting in that ring and being able to tell a physical story that I can get those people to connect and emotionally react, and do it the way I want them to, as much as I want them to, when I want them to finally, for want of a better term, climax, to a term we call pop, to pop their nut at the end. There's nothing that makes you feel more alive, that ability to be able to do that. And again, it's easier to do it with 100,000 people, quite honestly, than it is to do it with 100, because that 100,000 people are amped up and are there for the event, and they're ready to go. So, manipulating their emotions, taking them on a ride, they're primed, because you can't pull water out of a dry well. You got to always prime the pump. But those 100 people are more of a challenge, because they're less anonymous. There's not much anonymity with 100 people in a well-lit building as compared to 100,000 people in a half darkened stadium. And it's a testament to your abilities and your skills, but both are an incredible feeling to go out and be able to do that in front of.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because, to Al's point, like, pro wrestling is the only genre of entertainment where when we go out there, like, we want them to go on the spectrum of emotions, right? We want people to cheer. We want people to boo. We want people to smile. We want people to feel robbed at times, right? And like, if you're playing a music show, you want the audience into it, right? You want everyone banging their head or everyone kind of just grooving and like you get your applause at the end. Well, sometimes in wrestling, in the majority of my career, like, no, I wanted people throwing stuff at me and booing me and calling me every name in the book. And it's such an interesting feeling. And there really is nothing in the world that can duplicate it, because you literally have, your whole spectrum of emotions. And if you're in there with a good dance partner, if you're both skilled, and by skilled, you're not going out there and you're not rehearsing every single thing you did, because it just becomes so formulaic. And in my opinion, the audience loses its connection and you miss out on so many moments, like the best moments in my career. And since I've kind of come back into wrestling the last year or so, like even in NWA, like, where you just have to go with what the audience is doing, because that is the true magic of what we do. And, it's funny because, like, wrestling has always been, maybe not now so much, but like the bottom rung of the entertainment totem pole, but True. The actual skill level it takes to where, like, you have to be so uninhibited. I mean, we're out there on live TV in front of 10,000 people in our underpants twice a week.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to do that, right? I mean, it's crazy, but then to, like, no, I want these people to hate me. I want to get a smoothie thrown at my car or something like that. Like, that is it is the true magic of it, to where when that happens, you go, all right, awesome.
Well, the black underwear helps. The black,
yes,
look for hatred. It's
true. But it also, to Aaron's point, it's kind of like stand-up comedy in that you have to be, as a performer, you have to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest in who you are, because the audience can tell. It's not like film or TV where they're not connecting directly with you. They can sense if you're a fraud, and then they're not gonna buy into what you're doing.
Do you guys?
And there's no second takes.
No,
it's true.
No.
Do you guys do meet and greets?
Yeah.
For us, a meet and greet, you do that stuff too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do those type of things too. Yeah.
So
which is weird. It's like when I left WWE, I did about 6 months and I wasn't familiar with it, and I was just like, oh wow, this is cool. It's like you get to kind of appreciate a different side of the business, and you see, you get to meet fans in a more unrestricted environment, which is cool.
Well, the interaction's nice. I mean, like, so I worked for Poison and Bret Michaels. There'd be a long queue of people at the end of the night to meet him. I think that might have been like his favorite part about the show. He loved it. He would wait there and he would shake everyone's hand, take pictures, and he really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do? So in the music industry, we got a sound problem or whatever, the guys start playing Led Zeppelin. I mean, what do you do when there's a technical problem? You have to just wrestle through it. You just said there's one take. I mean, so you just go.
You just grab a hold. I mean, that's it. You grab a hold. We're trying to, the only thing that's not real in professional wrestling is just that we know who's going to win before we walk out there. So we're trying to sell that belief, create that illusion for you that, you know, that win and that loss have a consequence to it. So, you know, if something goes wrong, something's not exactly the way it needs to be, we just have to continue to make you believe and never allow that illusion to be interrupted, that, you know, that we're out there trying to win. That's it.
Sometimes the ring breaks. I mean, I've had top ropes break on me. I mean, it just, you got to go.
You never know.
Yeah.
The number one rule in wrestling is to take shit and make shoe polish. That's it.
Yep. I figured though, if the rope breaks at the end and you're done in the back, you're like, that was awesome, dude. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well, if it breaks at the right time, great. If it breaks at the wrong time,
yes,
you got to figure it out. You got to take shit and make shoe polish.
So when Aron was at Ohio Valley Wrestling, how many people were there with you? I assume you're going to say that Aron had promised. I think that's probably pretty safe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I always saw that in there. Yeah. And Aron did it, you know, developed this act with Beth Phoenix and Shelly Martinez there at one point. And it was awesome. It was a great act. And like, I remember, Aaron, when we did the angle with Goose Mahoney and E-Town.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Briscoe, the referee. And it was like one of the first live events that we had completely sold out the building for that match.
That was so good. I mean, like we had a town in like before Al was our trainer, we would go to this town. It's about probably like 40 miles outside of Louisville. And we would go there. And then, you know, every week, I mean, we'd have maybe 100 people. We would have, you know, I mean, it would just kind of fluctuate. But then when Al kind of started taking over, he's like, no, let's run some angles. And then they popped for Goose Mahoney once. And he goes, this is what we're doing. And then it was like, I want to say, I mean, 3 months later, we were doing like tar and feather matches. And literally, I mean, there was a line out the building and there were people. It was the coolest thing ever that had happened to me at that point in my career. And it was just like, that was Al teaching us the difference between drawing money and just doing moves in the ring, because there is a difference. So that was like awesome lessons.
Oh, that's cool.
Remember we used to, when we were running the Six Flag events, and we started drawing so many people that Six Flags came back. We were only doing 6 events a year. And they came back and they're like, hey, could you double it up? Could you do one every week? We'll do 4. You know, we ended up doing 14 events in a season instead of just the normal 6, because we were drawing so big an audience for the shows every week. You know, it was amazing. We ran that one year. Remember the last year before they shut it, pulled the association, WWE pulled the association. We ran 134 live events that year.
So crazy.
And,
a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, but that was what, you know, that's what you do it for, is that's where the guys, the kids really learn is in front of an audience. It's not in an empty building just doing. It's where they get to go out and they get to figure out what works for them and why it works and how much it works. And, you know,
lucky for us, he's so good looking, huh?
What's that? I lost for a second.
When the audio
froze up again.
I'm like, we can just stare at it.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Bad joke. When you got to explain the joke, bad joke.
Bad joke.
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. That's why I didn't hear you, Joel. So
no, you're okay.
So
sorry, Aron. What do you got?
Oh no, I mean just to Al's point, yeah. Like in Al, it's funny because in the time I was in developmental for the first time in OVW, like we went through a plethora of trainers, and you know, Al just had this ability to just bring out the best in everyone, and then in doing what works for the individual, like understanding what works for me is not necessarily what's going to work for a Cody Rhodes or a Chris Rombola. So, you know.
Yeah, everybody's unique and everybody was an individual, you know, and I think that was one of the coolest things, is that you all had your own unique style and your own unique characters and your own unique approach. And, you know, what it always fascinated me and it frustrated me was you guys I always took it as you guys were sent to the developmental to find yourselves, to really, to develop that intrinsic thing, because I still hold to the fact that if an audience can't describe you in a sentence or less, you're not going to be a star.
Absolutely.
And you guys learned to be stars there.
Mm-hmm.
You learned what it took and what worked for you individually.
Yeah.
But you'd go up to WWE, and that they would want to literally recreate you. They'd take all of that and strip it away from you.
Yep.
And then they'd wonder why you didn't thrive in the environment in WWE on the main roster, when the very thing that you had developed, they took away and didn't want you to do. They did that to, remember Atlas DeBone, and he had such a personality, and they brought him up there and they cut his hair and they changed his name and they told him he couldn't do all the stuff he did that they hired him for. And then he failed.
Yeah, like, why would you do that to somebody?
I don't know.
No sense at all. Yeah, it was. God, it was crazy. It was. Like they've done that to a few people.
Yeah, they did it to you. They did it to, they did it to Boris.
Oh yeah.
They, he remember how over he was as a Russian
yes.
shoot fighter.
Yeah.
And had the whole thing down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take him up there and they make him Italian. And he floundered for a long time until he found his own way.
Yeah. I mean, I had to go to Puerto Rico, and then I had to come back, and it was that was a whole thing. Yeah, that was. I pieced out of the company for a little bit and went in Puerto Rico, worked for a guy named Carlos Colon for about a year and a half, and then eventually just kind of came back. But it was really weird. And again, who really knows why they do what they do? I mean, sometimes there seems no rhyme or reason, but you do the best you can with what you have. Yeah. And TV time is TV time, and it's priceless. It truly is.
Yeah, it really is.
Now, I actually, you know what?
Huh.
Joel, I told this story to Sandy the other day. So Joel and I have a mutual friend out here. That's actually how we met.
It's
Sandy.
Mutual friend. That's it, Al.
What's that?
It's our only friend, each of us. And this
yes.
happens to be this.
Yes, exactly. Do you remember when Greg Gagne came in and he had the bandana on his head?
And a big knot on his head.
It was a bruise with a perfect circle and a cut in the middle of the bruise.
Yes, he told me the story about he had hit his head twice on this thing on a fence and had created a huge. It looked like a unicorn knot right in the center of his forehead. Yes.
And then the bikes were hanging upside down. Like when he was with us, his wife hung the bikes and didn't tell him.
Walked in the garage and hit it again.
And he got hit in the head with it was like this perfect thing. And then
yeah.
Yeah, he was interesting. And was there, remember the snowsuit one when he fell off the roof and the wife didn't hear him? Like, first of all, what grown man has a snowsuit? But this dude was trying to clear his roof off, and I guess he slipped. And he was hanging on, but
slid
he was trying to hang on
the roof.
A plane flew over and his wife didn't hear him scream. And he let go and he just kind of he fell off the roof.
Yeah. He was so unintentionally.
That's a bad thing. It's a bad thing.
He was so unintentionally funny.
Yeah, there's so many characters like that in wrestling, man. I mean, and I don't know what you're in music, you have your personalities and stuff like that. But God, I mean, just in the time that we were in OVW, the people that came through there, it's just, I mean, you literally, I mean, you can't make these characters up.
Yeah. So are you going to be wrestling Billy Corgan soon?
Me or hell?
He is taller than you. I don't know. It's a good one.
No, Billy.
Al has standards these days.
No, Al, and you know what? What's cool with me right now is with NWA, where Billy's mind for the business. I mean, he gets what the business is.
Yeah,
and that is something that there's people that call themselves wrestlers or people in the office that they don't quite understand the simplicity of what we do. And where Billy and his vision and direction in the NWA, it's been amazing to work for. And it's just like what you're doing OVW, you know what I mean? How it's not rocket science, as Pat Kinney would say.
Yeah, it's not. Nobody's reinvented the wheel, it's still round. We're still in 1920 they were selling just the finish, you know, and in 1963 they were selling the finish. In 2021 you're selling just the finish. You're selling who you are and why you're doing it. That's it. I think all the major companies have become so detached from that and are allowing the vocal minority, the smart wrestling fan, to dictate their choices and their direction. And the talent are as well, because the talent no longer wrestle for the audience. The talent now wrestle for each other. And they wrestle for someone who's writing a report in the audience. And they equate success based on a critical acclaim, as opposed to, like I tried to explain to you guys, that our success was based on how many people attended the show. It was never based on who wrote a report about what we did. I could care less about that. It was always based on how many people were in attendance, you know.
Yes.
And I think back, and that was really one of the more fun. It was a stressful time. There was a lot of aggravation, a lot of stress, but it was probably one of the more fun and more creative. And like, we told such great stories and had such great characters, and you know, and created really awesome moments, you know. Remember all the storyline with Jack Bull and
oh my God,
how ridiculously over that guy was. I mean,
oh my God, that was, I'll never forget. So Jack Bull was essentially Evel Knievel.
But washed up and drunk.
Yes, a washed up stuntman, like a failed stuntman who was wrestling. And I mean, oh my God, he would do these stunts when we would do the non-televised events too, to where like he was going to sit in an airtight, soundproof container the whole time. There is no oxygen in it and everything. And you know, it's a deprivation chamber. And like, Jack, can you hear us? Nope. You know, it was stuff like that. And one time, I mean, when you gave him his comeback, because he would smoke in the ring apron, he had a flask. He came in the ring, dropped his cigarette. A guy would charge him. As he would pick his cigarette up, he would come up. The guy would charge and then take a backdrop out of the ring. You know what I mean? He'd take a swig. The guy would kick him in the stomach and he'd spit the whiskey out in the guy's face. I mean, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's
he was so ridiculously over. And so you understand the psychology. As a wrestler, as a babyface, as a good guy, you can only think that the babyface, the protagonist can do is try to win, and never, it is always honest, is always forthright, doesn't break the rules. Jack wrestled in one of the Six Flag events, was wrestling a young kid named Seth Skyfire, who everybody loved. And he promised that he was going to do a stunt where he was going to take a motorcycle, ride it down the ramp, and somehow bounce the wheels and jump the ring. And he didn't know how to ride a motorcycle for real, so he starts the motorcycle up and he literally pops the clutch. It pops a wheelie. He drops the bike. He stands up and begins to tell the audience that he can't jump the ring because the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. He gets in the ring, and during the match, the crowd, he's so over that even after he lied to them, sold them the idea that he was going to do a stunt that he never did, they started cheering for him against the other guy that they loved, and they loved him more because you just couldn't help but love him. He was such a clod and such so entertaining that you just couldn't resist it.
He had Sosei, the publicist.
Yeah.
and also the bike was a mini bike. It was like a child's motorcycle. Yeah. It was this little tiny thing. And this dude's like 6'4", 280 or whatever he was. 280.
Yeah. Actually, Cody and Cody Rhodes and remember those guys, they pitched it to me at Six Flags one time, and I was like, well, okay, let's give it a try. Because remember, Jack Bull was not a very good wrestler, but as fearless Jack Bull, he was amazing. He was insane. Incredible.
Insane. Yeah. Yep. Oh my God. That was so much fun. It's like in music, right? Like what I'm interested, Joel, is how, you know, with you guys in a band, right? And like in the music world, is there like on a certain level before you make it to a national stage, is there like a developmental process in the music industry to where like when you're trying to find yourself, like work in smaller venues and stuff like that?
I never did. I was a roadie. I don't know how to play anything. I used to write lyrics a little bit here and there,
Mhm.
but yeah, the bars you play in these small venues, it's tough, man. It's hard work. And then you do van tours. So you all load in the van and you literally live together in a van. It's tough. It's hard. I didn't do that. I went straight to Stone Temple Pilots. That was my first tour. I got very lucky with the whole situation.
Right on.
I never did a van tour. Now, though, saying that, when you're working for a big band and they book a small club, it's kind of like what you were saying now, where you're performing for 100 people. You're like, hey, you guys are going to see the Chili Peppers, the Chili Peppers play tonight, and there's 40 people in the audience. I, too, I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be really neat because like for Scott Weiland, I wrote in my book, it was so cool to see him command 40, 50,000 people. And he would. You could hear a pin drop when they would do their acoustic stuff. But when he would go back to a club, he'd walk on the stage, because what you forget is he had done this for years. And so you've got the 100, 250 people in there, and that's where the band was worth watching, because you had that personal aspect that you lose maybe with a big audience.
Yeah, like a few years ago, I saw Billy at a show out here, and I forget the name of the venue. It was like a by a cemetery out here. You may know it, Joel.
Hollywood Forever.
It might have been, yeah. So it was. I couldn't tell if there was 1,000 or a couple hundred people there, but it was an intimate setting, sold out. But like just to see him do what he did and like how he interacted and stuff, and like he has. I mean,
he's so good,
dude. Like his voice just has a richness to it that's like, and then like, like with the lyrics too, and just like with different instruments. Like it was.
It's seeing true genius, when you've worked for a lot of these guys, and I'm assuming it's the same in your world. You've worked for a lot of these guys, you've been around the block, but then somebody still stands out. That one makes you want to go back the next day because there's other guys out there that are even better or asking, it's very exciting to see. Billy Corgan, watch his performances on Howard Stern. They're amazing. He's really, really good, because with an acoustic, you get to hear his voice better. You get to hear his lyrics, and you can understand this guy. He's a true artist. He's really good at what he does. And then, like you guys, Al, you diversified quite a bit throughout your career. Billy Corgan did the same. He was an MTV VJ while he was still a big rock star. Watch the one that they did an interview with him and Nick Cave, and Nick Cave's such a dick to him. It's great. Yeah. And he just like doesn't even care. He's like one of the biggest bands in the world. What does he give a shit? I don't know. It's neat. Why is he into wrestling? What happened? Is he loves the sport and he just got into it, or do you guys know?
He's been a fan since childhood,
That's probably
and just been a lifelong fan. Yeah.
Neil Young owns Lionel Trains.
Wow.
Yeah, loves trains. So he got divorced. And the one thing, and he got the train company. He keeps the trains. He's loved trains.
Hey, for him,
absolutely. It's neat, man.
But it's cool to see Billy, like, because again, like the first conversation I had with him, because and we had a mutual friend in Natalya, and so like Natalya kind of talked to him about me when I was coming there and stuff, and like told me about him. So like we say, hey, what's going on, and then like. We had this in-depth conversation about WrestleMania 3, which I think one of the greatest matches of all time, if you're looking at it from a performance standpoint, to where the people did not sit down ever, is Adrian Adonis versus Roddy Piper. I mean, you have Hogan and Andre, Savage and Steamboat, which was great. But if you look at Adonis and Piper from a performance, professional wrestling standpoint, what this business truly is, that match, it doesn't get nearly enough credit. And then so he's talking to me about it, and then he's like telling me about my character. He's like, oh yes, and I always thought like when you wore the pink, but it was juxtaposed to you came down and it was very intellectual. Like he got what I was doing, and that was at a point in my career where I was very much like thinking outside the box, and the fact that like wow, like Billy Corgan gets it. That was so cool, and like we've always kind of him and I have always been on the same page with things. That's why like when he called me. I was in Hawaii filming a TV show, and then he's like, hey, you need to come back to NWA. And I'm like, I gave it a shot, but then it was just from the the way it was presented, the studio, it was done correctly. Like, it's what wrestling fans, in my opinion, want. And it's an alternative, you know, and again, philosophically, I don't think there's really much difference in like what we're doing and what Al's doing. It's the wheel is still round.
Yeah. Speaking of that then, so what's it like you trained Dan Severn? Was it exciting for you to try? It's not something different, or maybe it is something different. Was you keep switching up your career, you know, where you open up a training camp, you do all these things. What was it like going into the UFC world?
Not fun. It's a different world. There are a lot of athletes that are, you know, at that time, because the UFC I was a part of is completely different than the UFC you guys have now.
So
the UFC that I was a part of.
Was it Dan asked you to get involved? What brought
Dan approached me and about wanting to help train him. But we didn't know, you know, unlike now, you know, you go back then, you had to fight 3 fights. It was a tournament style. You had no idea who you were facing. And unlike now, where everyone has a ground game, everyone has a stand-up game, everyone has a certain amount of a submission game. You know, so, and you can watch videos, and you can use the internet, and you can kind of do some background research and things like that. We didn't know who. We didn't even know who else was going to participate, because you didn't know until you got there. And then when you know, Dan, for instance, the first fight, he fought a Muay Thai guy who was completely covered from head to toe in baby oil.
Anthony Macias.
Yeah, and we you know, I cussed the referee out for not doing anything about it. And then the next guy was a long style karate form of fighting. And
Joe
luckily
Charles.
I had actually, I don't know how you remember these guys' names, Aaron. I didn't.
I am a big early UFC mark, which I'll shut up and let you talk. But you cut a hell of a promo, and that was the first conversation I had with you when you were cutting the promo on the announcer.
Yeah, on the announcer, because he pissed me off. So, you know, I had some experience with long style karate, so I knew I told Dan, I said, hey, when the guy steps back, he's going to throw this type of kick, duck up underneath him, and take him down and hook him. And Dan did exactly what I told him, and it worked out perfectly. And then finally, you know, that fight was where the commentator came up and was like, hey, you know, what do you just won your second fight. You're going to face Royce Gracie in the finals. What are you going to do now? And I was looking at him, and like, Dan didn't say anything. And I just looked at him and I said, well, he's going to go back in the locker room and have sex. What do you think he's going to do? Like, what a stupid question. I knew he just wanted him to put Royce over. And, you know, and then the guy just took the mic away and just ran away. He wouldn't interview us anymore. So
it was the best. And when I was a kid, like, because I wasn't like, I did a little bit of Kung Fu when I was a kid. So I was a big fan. And I said Mark for those of the non-wrestling people that are listening, a Mark means a fan. And the first like 4 or 5 UFCs I absolutely loved, but I was also a wrestling fan. And Al was under a different name at the time, which I won't say because I've learned I know better, but he was wrestling. We'll call him LC. And I remember going, wait a minute. Is that him? No, wait, this is wrestling, but that looks just like him. And it was always in the back of my mind. And then years later, when Al was our trainer in OVW, it was like the first question I had from him was like, hey, you weren't in Dan's corner at the UFC. And he did. And I popped. It was so funny. I was like, oh my God, I knew it. And but UFC no, like 4. God, yeah, like the first couple UFCs were just they were incredible.
They were shit show. You know, and I remember that UFC, there was a boxer, the guy was gassed to the gills, black guy. He came out and he wore one. Do you remember the guy fight? He came out and wore one boxing glove.
Art Jimmerson.
Yes.
Art Jimmerson.
Yes. He came out with one boxing glove and he had his other hand free. And I was like, well, if he hits somebody, he's, you know, this ain't going to be long, but if they get him off his feet, he's done. And sure enough, he tried to catch the guy and he just shot in on him, took him down. That was it. He was over. It was over. So, Yeah,
And
it was a very different time. Joe San, remember Joe San was in there.
Oh,
yeah, I remember we're flying back from Oklahoma City, and they were in the back of the flight. We're on a Continental Airlines flight, and Joe San and Kimo were back there, and they were oh, I hope his plane crashes. We're gonna go see the Lord. We're gonna go to heaven. I hope his plane crash. And everybody was getting upset because they were saying that. So like some waitress comes, the stewardess goes back and she's like, please guys, can you stop saying that? And for whatever reason, like they kept at it. They just kept, Kimo's like, if the plane crashes, I'll be fine. I'll be going to heaven. I don't know about the rest of you. And all of a sudden, I'm not kidding, the plane goes up, it goes down, and then it literally went completely sideways and then goes back and just kind of bounces to where we all I thought we were going to die because we hit some like air pocket or something. And then nobody said anything. And I jumped up out of my seat and I turned around. I said, well, I guess we just about did it. I hope you're fucking happy now. And I sat back down, and everybody started laughing on the plane, and they didn't say another word for the rest of the flight.
Wow. Wow. Well, yeah, that was it was Keith Hackney. Remember him and Joe?
Yeah. Remember he kept punching him in the balls.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that was just Keith Hackney was my favorite, like UFC.
He did White Tiger Kung Fu.
Yes, Salviano's White Tiger, Kempo, Karate, Kung Fu. I remember it. I mean, I don't ask me how I remember all this stuff. I don't remember anything about my own career, but like this early UFC stuff. When he fought Emmanuel Yarbrough.
Yes.
And this guy, right? He was 6'8".
He's striking him in the back of the head.
But
those are like lethal blows. You could kill a man with those.
Yes, but like that first punch because Keith Hackney was only about like 5'11", right? And he just came like here and he caught him, and then you saw this mountain of a man just like crumble down. It was, I still say if Hackney hadn't have broken his hand, he would have probably done. I don't want to say beat Gracie, but
and I told Dan this before we went there. I said, please don't shoot in on him. Don't shoot in on him. Don't take him down. Keep him on his feet. And Dan, when we got to that part, they took Dan away and had a conversation with Dan. So I still, to this day, Dan never smartened me up, but I'm almost positive they told him to put Royce over. And not 30 seconds into the fight, Dan shoots in on him and double legs him, takes him down. And I'm like, no, don't, And the next UFC, remember UFC 5, Kimo fought Gracie the second round, and he kept him on his feet the entire time. Yeah. And Gracie was too blown up to come out and fight the final round. Yeah. That's the key to beating those guys, those Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys, is to keep them on their feet. Yeah.
That's it. God, it was incredible. But like, I remember when Royce was going for the armbar, and Joel, I know we got off into a side tangent, but this is just fun stuff. Like, got him in the armbar, and like Hackney just kept nailing him. And I mean, if his hand wasn't broken, he would have. Oh, God, it was so.
He'd have probably won.
It's funny.
He'd have beat Royce.
Yeah, but it's funny because that essentially that's how wrestling started, right? To where, like, again, whatever conversation happened with Dan. I mean, and it's fine. I have a friend of mine who was in the corner of another UFC champion. And before a fight, I swear he told me a very similar story to where him and Dana had a private conversation. Sure. And
listen, when it comes, it's a business. And when it comes, the only thing that's fake about wrestling is the finish. You know what's the only thing that's fake about MMA? Just the finish. You know what's the only thing that's fake about boxing? Just the finish. That's what listen, at the end of the day, we're always selling who and why. The only reason anybody watched that Conor McGregor and Mayweather fight was because of who was fighting and why. The only reason that anybody watches any MMA fights is because of who's fighting and why. The only reason you watch professional wrestling is because of who and why. And if you could ever get the boys to quit trying these days to sell what and go back to selling just the who and the why, the business would completely turn around.
Well, I don't think Vince wants stars because if I mean, and look, I'm not trying to sound whatever, but it's happened to me. It happened to me 3 times to where when you reach a certain point, I mean, I was the #1 heel selling t-shirt in the company. I was the number 3 selling overall t-shirt in the company. All of a sudden, my merchandise is yanked off of live events. And like that creatively, like they, and this is just my opinion. I don't think Vince wants anyone to become that much of a star to where they don't need him. And I think that's why you see the WWE's ratings at an all-time low, because look, we're in, you know, especially with 2020, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's need for original programming. Everyone should be watching wrestling, and no one is, because no one cares about the actual people. Exactly what Al says. No one cares about the characters.
Right. And Vince has the wrestling business, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The wrestling business is yours. The wrestling business is the wrestler's business. And Vince has always known that, because it's all, when I broke in years ago, it was always us against the office. Okay. Because we really, it was our business, and the office knew it. Okay. But, what the deal was, the boys always tried to do the least and get paid the most. And the office tried to get the boys to do the most and pay them the least. That was that's just what the wrestling business is. Okay. Vince has somehow completely flip-flopped it to where he has convinced all of the wrestlers that it is his business, and that it's the writer's business, and that the wrestler doesn't make themselves a star, that Vince and WWE makes you a star. And nothing could be further from the truth. You know, you made yourself a star, Aron. And then you capitalize, because that's the business the business plan is for me, the promoter, to create a platform and to give you that platform to allow you to make yourself a star. And then together we capitalize on it by me exploiting it. And then we make money. But, you know, and that's all I ever did with you guys in OVW, was give you a platform to allow you to make yourselves stars, and that we capitalized on it, we exploited it, you know. But Vince has done such a great job of rewriting the narrative to where now everyone in wrestling believes the complete opposite. It's insane. It's amazing. And as such, his business has suffered for it. You know?
Yes. And it's becoming a lost art is what really bothers me. And like what I'm noticing too. And like in NWA, we're pretty good about it. You know, there's a few people that actually understand how to do it, but more and more, like with the younger people coming in, and like, or the newer people, like they are so far removed from like what you just said, which is what this industry is. And to where like, oh, I'm going to do this flip, that flip. What, we're like, I write the show championship from Hollywood. I'm the booker there. Right. So and it was just like, when you tell these people, it's funny because I feel like you sometimes, I'm like, you know, when you tell people something, it's almost like what, huh? And then when it actually works, they go, oh, okay. And a lot of them, like 2 of them have gotten signed. I mean, not because of me, not because of anything I did, but like you see them relax, you see them understand what it is. And you see them not worried about like, I'm going to make my flip look good. And which, look, I'm all for doing flips and cool moves, right?
Sure,
nothing against that, but make it mean something. No one ever paid money to see a backflip in a professional wrestling, right? They pay to see the person doing it. Rey Mysterio, you know, in my opinion, one of the greatest luchadors, if not, well, the greatest in North America by far, and actually all over the world, right? The most famous. You know, he does all these great moves, and then the biggest move he has is the guy's on the middle rope. He sits around and just does a kick, but it's the greatest thing ever because Rey knows how to do that. You know, and so it's not the actual move. It's like you said, it's the person doing it. Yeah.
It's the who and the why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
When they pulled your action figure out, were you pissed, or did you not give a shit?
No, I mean, I was shocked. You know, that there's an interesting story with this. I found out that Monday when I was in Philadelphia. And the way I found out was at the gym prior to Monday Night Raw, and Blue Meanie and I were at the gym in Philadelphia, and on all the TVs, all the major news, the TV networks, the TV affiliates, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, the top news stories were the mayoral race in Philadelphia, in no particular order either. the Bosnian peace process, and the Walmart pulling my action figure off the shelf. That was literally how I found out that it was like a national story. And I arrived at TV and I walked in the building. I'll never forget this. I walk in the building. Aron will probably laugh when he hears this because he'll understand. And Vince is speaking to Tommy Blodgett, one of the writers. And he turns, he sees me, and he comes walking up with a big smile on his face, and he goes, "Al, what the hell have you been up to?" And I go, "Vince, I have no idea." Like I was about to tell him, I just found out. And he just gets this look on his face, turns it immediately around, does a 180, and just walks back to Tom Blodgett like he didn't just start a conversation with me. So I'm standing there like confused, and I go, I yell, I go, "Well, you know what? I'm going to go on down to the locker room. If you want to continue the conversation you just started, just come find me. I'll be glad to speak with you." And I just walked off because I was like, who does that? Who starts a conversation and then just walks up to you and goes, "Hey, how you doing?" You go to answer and he goes, "Fuck it," and just turns around and walks away.
Yep.
You know, don't you? Yeah, I to this day, I have never experienced anything like that with another human being in my life. Never. It just, you completely, like he's about to have this big conversation with you, and then just, nope, second thought, I don't even want to talk to you.
I've gotten contradictions in the same sentence.
Oh yeah. And
I just was like, what? Like, Coach, you told me to do this. Yeah.
Yep. And then he'll turn around and tell you he act like he never said it to you.
Yes. And then when you agree with him, he says, "No, do it this way," which is the original way, which is what you know. I am not exaggerating at all. That was when I mentally just checked out of there. I was like, there's nothing I can do that can,
can't win.
I'm not going to try to rationalize anything. It just, it is what it is. I'm not ragging on a guy. He does his thing. He does it well.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, that's when Aron, not Damien Sandow, when Aron was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm out.
I'm done."
Yeah.
Funny.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this guy I used to work for. He worked for Santana, and he said that they'd have pep talks basically, and he'd be like, "So imagine that we have a table and all of you are like the legs of the table, and the band are like the pancakes on top of the table." And this is like the whole crew that they'd be looking at him like, "What the fuck are we talking about here?"
Wow.
But everything was one of these illusions. Imagine that.
Listen, Joel, if Vince would just do that, I would be cool with it. Okay.
Yes.
And Aron will test you. It's like this. Joel, when you do your podcast, what I want you to do, okay, is on your introduction, I want you to read off Al and Aron's accomplishments so that you can let the audience know who they are and what they're about. You'll begin to read off Aron's accomplishments, and then you will hear in your IFB in your ear, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you reading off his accomplishments? The audience doesn't want to hear that." And he'll completely contradict what he told you to do and be mad at you because you're doing what he told you to do.
It's a little tough. I got it.
You'll go out one night and you'll come back and he'll go, "Why'd you do that? That's wrestling. You don't do that here. We do sports entertainment." You'll go out and the next night and do exactly what he told you to do. You'll come back and he'll go, "What the hell was that? It's wrestling on the marquee. We're not selling just entertainment. We're selling wrestling." And you're like, "But last night you told me."
Yeah, you get to the point where why even argue? Okay.
Because, but he is, none of it makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
None of it.
We should run the world, guys. We would do good, man.
I don't want to
Billy
do
Corgan,
that. Believe
all
me.
day and all night.
Mm-hmm.
I ribbed.
We lost him. Hold on.
Oh, he's back.
We missed your profound wisdom on changing the world.
I said I ribbed myself enough by buying a wrestling company. I don't want to be in charge of the world.
And you're still in Louisville, right, Al?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, I'm hoping in the next couple months here, I'll definitely be that way again. So we'll have to link up.
I'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I'd love to see you.
Yeah. All right, Joe, look, you've had me on your podcast. I appreciate it and everything. You brought my friend Al here. I see that you have an adult beverage. So I know you spend some time in the lake and everything, but I just want you to know I would crush you drinking a beer. I'll meet you at Andrea's house. Andrea and Kyle, let's go.
Dude, I could beat you with a beer in hand and my other hand behind my back. And it would be at Sandy's house. Thank you. Al, would you train me?
I would definitely train you. And again, I agree with you. It would have to be at Sandy's house. Because listen, if we're going to train, we're going to train where we have supplies. And the supplies are aplenty at Sandy's house.
They are.
Actually, that is true.
That's true. The place is actually really cool. If you would be like, this is a good decision here, boys.
Yeah, that is true. They'll get a kick out of that.
I think they will too.
Yeah.
Maybe
All
right, guys. I really appreciate it, Al. It's nice to see you again.
Hey, thank you.
That was good seeing you. It was good seeing you too, Aaron.
Yeah, you too, Al.
All those years ago where you came and helped me out on my movie meant a lot to me. So it was cool.
Well, I appreciate you having me on it. It was fun to do.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, I'll see you soon. We're going to be doing a little birthday party for me. I'll let you know here after.
Right on. I'm sure I'll get the memo. All right.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.